Hi, and welcome to the Sunday Lunch Project podcast, episode 39 for the 22nd of December 2019. This is your host, Nigel Creaser, and this month, the Sunday Lunch Project Manager meets Praveen Malik, the startup and sales guru. But first, a word from our sponsors. As we are so close to the holidays, we are sponsored by Peace and Goodwill to everyone. But having said that, remember, you can always play the 12 Days of Project as you tuck into your lunch at Christmas Day or instead of the Queen's speech. I know my youngest will be playing it because she likes hearing her own voice. If you're interested in sponsoring the show, then please get in touch at sundaylunchpmpod@nigelcreaser.com. In news, I've continued to scratch out some words on my novel following completion of just over 20,000 words in November, as I predicted last month. It was a really interesting process, and I'm finding out things about the story I wasn't aware of and about the characters, which is fantastic and great fun, although a bit hard. I've now reset my target to see if I can complete the draft by the end of February, which is a push as well, especially with December, and I'm behind already, but let's see where we get to. I've not finished the blog that I promised last month on the PMI Synergy event, so I'm going to hold that over till into the new year. I know there may be some of the videos available, so I may time it at the same time when if the videos become available from the PMI, so it's all timed up, and I'll do a podcast on it as well. So I might hold that on. It might be a little bit late and not that timely, but I think it's worth waiting for to get it all together in one go. This month I've also been on the other side of the mic. Once on an interview with Joel Stone at Codebreak, a fantastic marketing agency in Shrewsbury, with their great podcast they've got called Breaking It Down. It was a lot of fun. I was discussing the Amazon Alexa and how you can use it for small business marketing. And the second time was for the PM Tips website, where they were talking about some of my experience, some of my opinions on project management. Much more nerve-wracking than I'd realised to be sat on the other side of the mic. Talking about the podcast, they're now starting to look a little thin on the ground, ready for next year, but I decided to put myself on a break for December and plan to get a few in the bag during January to take the pressure off. We've still got some great episodes coming at the beginning of next year for you to look forward to. We have Sidar Oak in January. It was a fantastic story. February, we have Emily Lubritz, EM the PM, and really, really entertaining interview. And I have another Saturday brunch interview that's going to be coming in January. Peter Taylor joins us again, which is great. And this time he's not alone. And it'll be my first interview with two people. Susie Palmer True is co-author of a book called Project Management is Bollocks. So that's I'm really looking forward to that interview. On personal stuff, I mentioned my judo stuff that I've been doing. My final judo competition of the year worked out to be a really good day. The event had two competitions running. In the morning, there was a masters event where we were divided up into age and weight, and then in the afternoon there was a senior event, which is divided up just by grade. The morning was okay. I had 4 in my category, and I lost all 4 fights, but not. I fought well, and I thought it did well. And I was awarded bronze for my efforts, as the normal approach in judo, where you usually have 4 medals. The afternoon was a bit different. We had 20 in the category, all of us first dans, and we were divided into pools of similar weights. I won 2 fights in my pool of 4, ending up going through to fight for a quarterfinal place, which I lost, unfortunately, but the guy I lost to went through to the final and eventually won it, I think, which meant I had a chance to fight for bronze. Unfortunately, I missed out, but having said that, in all the fights, I fought really well. I enjoyed it. I had 8 fights, I think it was, overall. And as I'd won 2 fights, that meant 20 points to my second Dan, which is my second black belt. So I'm only 40 points away from that. So all in all, a really good day. And while I'm recording this, mid-December, for all you techies out there, I also passed my Microsoft Azure Fundamentals exam today. So I was really chuffed with that. And well, that's all from me. And have a listen to the interview, and I'll talk to you after. Today's guest is Praveen Malik. Praveen is a certified project management professional with a rich 24 years of experience, a computer science engineer by education, and having a great working experience managing large multi-geography projects and programs. He has a unique distinction of working in different business environments, software product development, software services, product-oriented product software services, and software as a service. He has a wide-ranging exposure to different application domains such as healthcare, government services, insurance and banking, and has worked across a number of clients with the US, Europe, and in India, working with organizations such as Spheris Inc., HCL Technologies, Athinet Technologies, and RMSI. Most of these in the capacity of program manager or PMO member, and he was instrumental in establishing and eventually heading up the India Development Center for Spheris Inc. Nowadays, he devotes his time to providing consulting services in project management and software engineering, regularly undertaking assignments on sales support, project planning, project tracking, business analysis, software design, and process definition and optimization. He also delivers high-end training, notably the PMI preparation courses that he has on his site for project management. And I'll talk about this later, I think he has an interest in cricket from looking at one of his links on LinkedIn. So Praveen, welcome to the Sunday Lunch Project podcast.
Thank you, Nigel. It's nice of saying some kind words for me. Thank you so much.
No problem at all. So let's get straight to it. Where were you born?
So I was born in New Delhi, India. New Delhi being the capital of India, and I have been here since my birth, and currently living here. But I've traveled all across the world, being USA, Europe, Australia, Southeast Asia, many other places.
Brilliant. And that's where you're living now?
Yeah, so I stay in New Delhi right now, yes.
Okay, brilliant. And for those of us like me who don't understand geography very well, especially of the large countries in the world, whereabouts is New Delhi in relation to the shape of India?
So it's north of India. If you look at the whole geographical world map, then towards the western side is the Middle East nations like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Pakistan, all these countries. Toward the northern side of India, it's China, and above that it's Russia and other erstwhile USSR countries. And towards the eastern side, you have the Southeast Asian countries like Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia. So this is like bit of and the south is surrounded by sea, which is like one part is Indian Ocean, major part is Indian Ocean, and so Delhi is somewhere on the northern side of India.
Right.
And it's a capital. It's a very small city as compared to the rest of the India. It's a very small city.
Right. Okay. Cool. Great.
Yeah.
So, are you there? Family, friends? What's your family situation?
Yeah. So I've been married for about 15 years now. 2004 we got married, and we've got 2 kids, loving kids, school-going kids. I've got a loving wife. He used to work earlier. She was into market research, but she takes care of us, all of us nowadays. So that's a small family that we have. other than that, my parents, they are no more living, unfortunately. So this all of us are together right now.
All right. So you said that you were born in New Delhi and you're back then there. Did you stay there when you were growing up? Is that where you grew up?
Yes, I did my schooling here. My college education was also in India, but not exactly in New Delhi, a little bit further away from New Delhi in a different state. Um, uh, and throughout my life, that is my school going life and college going life, I was here only studying. But when I got into job, then I started traveling for business and career related purposes. But yes, uh, my base has always been New Delhi, and I've been staying here since my birth.
Right. So what was it like growing up there? And was it did you want to be a project manager when you were growing up?
No, not at all. In those days, I didn't know what project management was. That
Mm.
was when I was in college or even before that. It was the project management, or rather, you can say, what are projects, I got to know only when I started doing the job. If you talk about my growing up days, school going days, college going days, I always wanted to be something. I wanted to do something in technology. I was always fascinated by the gadgets and the different instruments, latest things that were coming. So I didn't have any money to buy in those days.
Hmm.
The things, and the other thing was that in India in those days, um, the new gadgets were never like launched immediately, but you could always read in newspaper that something is happening. So I was always fascinated by what's happening, and then I wanted to do something with technology, and luckily, or maybe it was by purpose, I got into engineering, which was computer science engineering, and uh, so this crafted my career towards technology. But yes, talking about project management, I didn't have a clue till I passed out and started doing job. What project management or what projects were?
Yes, it seems to be a common story.
Yeah.
So that engineering side of it, was that from very young that you were into that sort of the new gadgets, and that was that kind of in your teenage years, or
Yes.
yeah.
Uh, so when I did my completed my schooling, uh, uh, I, wrote entrance examination to get into an engineering college, um, and I got good score. I got a good college, which was a government-run, state-funded college. And in those days, uh, it was, I would say, somewhat lucky for me, because computer science was just beginning to shape up. I started my engineering in 1991,
Right.
and that was like early 90s, or the period where the IT industry started taking shape. So it was like late 80s to early 90s when it was starting taking the shape, and then by mid of 90s it was like booming, and that was like the biggest boom period of the IT industry, whatever I've seen since then. That is mid 90s to the late 90s, or you can say 2000. Um, so so I think I was lucky in that sense that I chose computer science engineering. It was a hot thing at that time. I could have chosen some other engineering subject, but I chose this. So that's how I got into technology, and I started uh, getting a feel of uh, the different uh, like computers in those days. And like in those days, the computers were really like you can say it's ancient from what we get today.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah, those
remember.
floppy drives and disk operating system and Unix terminals and all those things. But it was fun. So you could actually work on the internals, the real inside the computer, what was happening. You can feel it. It was fun in those days. Yeah.
Cool. So obviously you went to college, you did your engineering. What was your first job then that you did, or the first few jobs? Because it sounds like you went into the actual hands-on software engineering roles. Was that what you did?
Yeah. I passed out in '95, and immediately I got a job in a company which was uh, providing software services to some US based clients. Uh, in fact, if I remember correctly, my first project was with for a client which was into healthcare space, uh, and they had some big hospital chains as their clients, and these uh, they wanted they had a Unix based claims management system, and they wanted to port it to um, uh, in those days this was like a latest technology that
Mhm.
there was IBM OS2 operating
Yeah.
system, which has since been defunct.
Hmm.
But in those days it was very popular, not very popular I would say, but very uh, like people wanted to do something in OS2 in those days. So they wanted to re-engineer the whole system in OS2. And at that time, I started working for my company, and this company had this project from this client, and we wrote the networking layers for this project, the software, and it was like very extremely new thing for me. So I had not
Mm.
learned all these things in college, but talking about technology, it was like it was very interesting in those days. And this was my first brush with the project because it told it gave me an opportunity to work in a large team. So there were like people from the US company who were working. There were some people from our US office that were working in this project, and then we were sitting in India and we were working. And in those days, again, internet was not a full blown thing, and we used to communicate through FTP channels, through um, some other means, through phones.
Yeah.
Email was not like the regular thing as it is nowadays.
Yeah, I remember around that time I was working in one of the banks in the UK, and some of the more senior um, members of the department had email, but it was quite. For some reason I needed the email, and it was quite an unusual one for someone on my grade to get email because it was very much on a limited basis. Which, when you look back now, it's quite crazy that was the. It feels weird that would be the situation, isn't it? And the fact that
Yeah,
we all have about 10 email addresses these days, don't we?
a drop of a hat, you can create one more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Where you had to go through a load of justification back then. All
Yeah.
right. So, obviously you were doing your software engineering. You were involved in projects. What was it that how did you end up being a project manager, or when you started being referred to or referred yourself as being a project manager? How did that happen?
Okay. So what happened that after doing my first project, it was really interesting. I could feel that the project software development is not just about technology and doing programming and doing coding, networking, and all those things. It is also about uh, working with other team members. Some coordination is required, communication is required, and you have to be in sync with the overall objective for whatever you are doing. So somebody has to bind the team together. Somebody has to think about the larger objective and provide the proper motivation to all the team members. So I could realize that maybe I was not ready uh, for management role at that point of time, but I could realize that this 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 thing is much more important than just implementing the technology. And but after doing this project, this was a long project. My contribution were appreciated by the company and by the client also. And they called me to US. It was a short trip, 1 month trip, and engaged me in a different project for a very small duration of time. And at that time, I got a brush of project management where I was interacting with the client as well as my Indian counterparts, which was more of communication and coordination kind of thing. But it gave me a uh, some idea about what project management was. And of course, in those days, you might know that there were not like no formal project management courses as such. Till today, very few universities provide formal project management courses. So, but I could realize that there's something called project management. And of course, the internet was not so much powerful that you can just go on to the search engine and type project management, and let's say million websites would come up, and you can read what project management was.
No, that's true. Yeah.
So that was my first brush, and then the other thing that really happened, just like I was saying, that IT industry was booming in those days. So it was uh, uh, like moving very fast, accelerating very fast in those days, and a lot of people were required. That is, the software engineers were required. So those who were in my position, they got promoted very early, luckily. And those who showed some motivation, some interest in going higher up, managing a few things, they had the uh, uh, red carpet for them. So I was like, I can say I was one of them. I proved my credentials. I got a smaller project to manage as early as 1997, which is like 2 years after I passed out. It was a small project, but yes, it was a project, and that gave me the first brush of project management. Yeah.
So tell me about that project. What was that? What was that project?
Okay, so that project was for the same client, and here, so they were healthcare software provider for the big hospital chains. So they wanted to create a scheduling system for doctors, and um, the machines that are there in the hospitals, like X-ray machines, other bigger machines and labs and all those things. So they wanted to create a scheduling system so that the resources are appropriately used. And secondly, the doctors, if they are scheduled for an appointment, they know, the patients know that this is the scheduled time, etc. And so this was a completely new development, and they involved me into this. And at that point of time, um, I like one of my senior asked me, okay, why don't you use Microsoft Project to uh, create a schedule for your project? I said, what is Microsoft Project? I didn't know anything about that at that point of time. So he just this is it. Maybe explain it 5 minutes that this is it, and you can just put your tasks and put a start date and end date and all those things. I said, okay, let me try. And I installed Microsoft Project on my PC, did some scheduling. I would not say that I was completely successful, but it was a start. So I learned project management, the ropes of project management on my way. Uh, while managing the project, it gave me an experience. It gave me the knowledge of what really project management is. It's only later I realized that there's a theory behind the project management. Initially, for first few years, it was all practical experience which taught me what to do and what not to do. Sometimes things would go right, and the client or the senior management would appreciate, and sometimes things went wrong also. And then uh, I would learn from those failures or the mistakes, and then move on and try not to repeat the same thing again. So it was a learning exercise initially, but then I think I learned a lot from those practical experiences.
Yeah, it sounds like a little bit of trial and error.
Yeah.
So, looking at those, obviously you went on and did load. What sort of? And you mentioned earlier that you travelled quite a lot. What sort of industry and sort of countries have you worked in?
Okay, so it was primarily US in the 90s, uh, because my company was a US based company, which with a branch office in India. Um, so I went to US a few times in those days, and plus with a big problem in those days, as it was thought, was Y2K, year
Yeah.
2000 problem for the American companies, American banks. They were like hiring software engineers left, right, and center to look at Y2K things. So I went to US many times in those days and worked with different clients. Um, Fortunately or unfortunately, I didn't work on Y2K, but on different other things. But after 2000, I got an opportunity to work in UK also, for a big publishing client. I worked in Malaysia for a bank. Not exactly working for a bank, working for my company who had a project from the bank.
Yeah.
And uh, worked with an Australian client. Uh, Worked with, of course, one or two Indian clients later part of after 2005, I think, with a government client, Indian government client. Uh, so yeah, but traveled across. I've never. I've been to Germany. Did a small project over there. Uh, but in those days, the English was not as much spoken in Germany than it is now.
Hmm.
Uh, so it was a very small tenure, very small stint. But yes, I traveled through on work purposes and other uh, pleasure purposes in Europe, in America, Australia, of course, Southeast Asia, Malaysia, and Singapore, and did all different kind of projects: banking, insurance, healthcare, um, government, to name a few.
All right.
But everything was a software project. Of course, done it for different domains.
Yeah, understand. So I suppose that what? How did you find that the difference in cultures from uh, obviously working in India and then going into these different areas? What was your experience of the culture differences there?
Oh, there's a lot of culture differences. Everywhere you go, the people, uh, when you're communicating with the people, your clients or otherwise, uh, they react differently, they talk differently. And as a project manager, this is the first thing that you must learn, that if you're working for in a different environment, different with different cultural people, then you must understand and appreciate how do they work. And sometimes it is weird that some people are doing something and you feel that, oh, this is not regular. Of course, they would feel the same about me when I'm going to the country, but then you have to learn how how do people do those things and why do they do those things. So just to give you one example, it was a, I don't know, funny example. When I first went to US, uh, so in those days, the McDonald's was not in India. So
Hmm.
when I first went to US, um, it was like maybe first or second day in US, and I went to the McDonald's. So I've heard about it. Of course, I've read about it because a big conglomerate. And then I went there, and uh, then I ordered something. I think it was chicken nuggets or something. And so the lady at the counter asked, "Okay, which sauce?" So I said, "I'll have tomato sauce." And this lady started laughing, smiling. Yes, I thought it's weird. Why is she laughing? Was my accent not correct? Didn't she understand or whatever? So again, she asked which sauce. I said I'll have tomato sauce. Then I realized that in US this they say ketchup
Yeah.
and not sauce. So sauce is like something else, like um, uh, what do you say, sweet and sour or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so uh, so uh, so it's not that I have not heard the word ketchup or I couldn't use it, but in the cultural terms, I didn't know
Yeah.
how what not to use. But there was a funny thing, and then it told me something that one must learn the local language, local culture when you're going there. Um, so moving forward, I, I s- I started looking at before going there. I started to maybe read something about that country before going there. Uh, there was another instance like when I went to Germany the first time around. So Germans are very, I would say, straight on the face kind of people. So they would say what they want to say. So sometimes it feels odd to the other person that some people will may feel that this person is not polite. Um, but that's how they speak. So when I first went there, I also felt that, oh, like they're very brash and upfront and on the face of they are saying something. But then I realized that's the part of the culture where maybe that's how the upbringing is, and it's not that they want to affront you or uh, make you angry. They just say what they see. Uh, so that's there were like many other instances where there were cultural differences, and of course when I'm going somewhere, maybe it's UK or Germany, I come with a baggage of Indian culture. So some people may like something, some people may not like something. So I have accepted that and try to do the thing which are best for that particular situation.
No, sounds reasonable. Sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
So, looking at all of your the projects that you've um, run over your career, what would what's the largest? And when I say largest, I don't necessarily mean what was your biggest revenue project or your biggest number of people. It's really just whatever you see as being large. It might be the biggest influence that project had on your end customer. What would you tell me about that one? The most important thing really is what did you learn from that piece of work?
Yeah, sure. Uh, so in the year 2004, I got married at that around the same time I switched jobs. So I joined HCL Technologies. It's one of the big five IT companies in India, and it has a global presence. And so this was like newly married and wanted to uh, um, enjoy that first year of marriage, so as to say. And
Yeah.
then I got into a project which was a slightly challenging project, I would say. In fact, very challenging, I would say. I the previous project manager has left, and they were looking for a project manager, and I got into HCL Technologies. So they just trusted this project upon me, and which was like already delayed, and they were like every day there was some escalation from the customer, and it was an insurance project, a claims management project, and an American client, and the technology was also new for me at that point of time. But by that time, I had uh, I was not really doing programming and other stuff, but still, when you have a new technology, that adds a dimension to the challenges that you have. So it
Yeah.
was a new technology, multi-locational project, insurance company, uh, and project already delayed. So there were like many factors. and plus my personal life, married life, newly
Yeah.
married. So I just wanted to enjoy. So all those things put together, it was I would say, a difficult thing. The team was also slightly large. It was a multi-locational project. So the client was based in Houston, Texas, in USA. Uh, I was when I joined, I was in India. Then uh, there was another branch office of the client's company in California. So those people also were chipping in with their stuff. And so we had our HCL team also, two people who were sitting in HCL office in United States. So there are like number of different teams who are working together in this. And from the HCL side, I was a project manager. Um, and uh, since the project was already delayed, I uh, first I understood what were the challenges, why it was delayed, and I found out that this basically a challenge related to the requirements. The client had not given the requirements properly, or it was like our engineers, the requirement analyst, business analyst didn't document it properly. So it was like both the things, and so that was the main challenge. So we used to have client calls every day in the evening, that is India evening, uh, because they were like every day something or the other, some escalation or the other, small, big, everything was there, and every day we had to douse the fires. But like I understood the whole thing after a while, and started talking to client in good terms. The project was finished. I won't say that it was not delayed; it was still delayed. Uh, and from the profit perspective, also, it was not as profitable as it was perceived to be when it was finished. But at the end, the client was satisfied in the sense that they gave us more business after this. So they also realized that it was a challenging project and it was a big project, a multi-locational project. So they also realized that there were challenges all through. They also realized that that there so many people are working, and they also didn't realize the complexity of the project. But they were appreciative at the end. They appreciated the effort. I had my own learnings from that, in the sense this was my first insurance project. I learned quite a lot about how the insurance companies worked, what is claims management. I also learned uh, how to um, work in a bigger company. So with before HCL Technologies, I was working for the smaller software companies,
Yeah.
and so internal politics was all not as much. But with HCL Technologies, when you have like thousands of people on their roll, then the internal politics kicks in. And then I also learned about that. At the end, it was, I think, a good ending. Yeah.
Excellent. So when you said that, when you started talking about your wedding, I thought I knew that Indian weddings were quite big. I didn't realize it was going to be your largest project for a minute then.
Yeah. So I changed my job in April 2004. We got married in August 2004, and yeah. So Indian weddings are very large.
Yeah, I was thinking, yeah, that would be a big one if you had a big, massive one bigger than your project.
Yeah, it was so I was working like Monday to Friday, like it was 12 hours in office, maybe 1 hour or 1.5 hours in commuting. So like practically like 14 hours uh, every day in office or commuting. And then
Makes it tiring, doesn't it?
yeah. So, and we were like dating at that time, my wife and me, and so every day I would find some time. My wife was also working at that time. We would find some time to meet, not every day, but I would say almost every day, at least 4 times a week. Uh, Saturday, Sunday, like since it's a, like as you said, it's a grand wedding in India, so we had to do a lot of shopping. So we were doing our own shopping. My wife's family were doing their own shopping. So it's clothes, jewelry, uh, taking care of the arrangements on the for the wedding day and everything. So it was crazy in those days. Yeah.
Oh, it sounds like fun. So let's think about more of a different thing. So obviously you've delivered a lot of different projects over your career, and some of them go well and some of them don't. So what would you say is the biggest mess up that you've made on a project, and what did you learn from it?
Okay. I would say the uh, biggest mess up was when I started doing the product development.
Hmm.
This was before HCL Technologies, and at that time, the this was around, I would say, 2001, uh, just after that dot-com burst, and then 9/11 happened, and all those things.
Hmm.
So economy was in downturn. It impacted the IT industry also. So the company I was working for uh, uh, didn't get as many projects as they had anticipated. So, but the company, all the IT companies, in fact, in those days had a lot of cash, and they started investing in products. So I was also made in charge of one such product, software product, and so this was at that time very new to me.
Hmm.
So so working for a client is, I would say, still easy in one way. Of course, there is a client pressure, but the client gives you the requirement, clients tell you the objective, and clients is funding, so you know how many team members would be there, etc. But when you have your own product, you have to think about lot many other things. What would work, what would not work, define your own requirement for the product. Will it work in the industry or not? Will the potential clients accept it? And then of course, the sponsor from your own organization, they would be behind your back to finish up as early as possible. So I, in the initial part, it was a big mess, uh, because um, I like whatever small team we had, we couldn't properly analyze the requirements. Uh, and the senior management also, since they just thought about an idea and they said this is the idea and now run with this idea. So they also didn't have the complete expertise in giving us the requirements at that point of time. Um, so initially we created some requirements documents, started working on it, got an approval on the requirements document from the senior management. But when you're doing the product, the things are very dynamic. So every day something new would come up, and requirement can change on a drop of a hat. So it was, yes, it was a big mess up in those days. Even though the team was very small, uh, it was internal to our company. So I was not dealing with the external client. But then I realized, okay, so product creation is completely different animal, and regular software service is a different thing altogether.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it was a learning exercise.
Excellent. So let's go back to something a bit more positive, shall we? What would you say of all the projects you did was your proudest project delivery? Sorry.
Um, I would say not related to the product delivery as such, but uh, I would say that my biggest uh, achievement, or you can say that the thing that I'm most proud is about handling how of the team members, motivating them, uh, telling them that okay, this is where we want to go. Like software projects are like long hour projects,
Mm.
and people spend long hours in the office, and sometimes they have their own family challenges, personal challenges. Sometimes the client is very harsh and pushy, and they want everything like tomorrow. So keeping up with the challenges, um, and getting the work done from the team is a difficult task. So I think I am a people's manager. So my proudest thing is that I could motivate the team members. I could retain the team members through the project. I could tell them why we are doing what we are doing, and people have always stood up with me, barring maybe one or two instances, but mostly, largely, they have stood up with me and given me the energy to move forward.
Well, that's good. So that's kind of covers a lot of the background, really, what I was going to talk to you about. And I suppose the only other thing I didn't talk about was the mention of cricket earlier. I noted that from your LinkedIn you have a cricket blog with your cricket views on there. So I'm guessing we can't not talk about cricket. I guess that you spend some time watching cricket.
Yeah,
Do
I'm
you
a
play?
No, no, not at all. I used to play when I was young, when I was a kid,
Yeah.
but not after that. Um, so yeah, I used to write a cricket blog. In fact, that's where I started my blogging. Um,
Right. Yeah.
um, so I took a mid-career shift in 2008, and I started doing trainings and
Mhm.
coaching on project management. Uh, and then at that time, when you're starting something new, you don't have too much of business, but you have to time on your side. So at that point of time, I started writing, and I thought cricket is a good thing. And since you are in UK, you would have heard about IPL, Indian Premier League, which is like the
Mhm.
biggest
Yeah.
cricket carnival, so as to say,
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah.
like
I get the fact that India and cricket are kind of synonymous with each other.
yeah. So in 2008, IPL started, which is like the internal league in India where different cricket teams play against each other, and then they hold the cup. So it's a more than a month long tournament. And so when I left my job, it coincided with the IPL. So I started writing about cricket and IPL and all those things. Uh, a- and it was not about what was happening on the field, because they're like every day you get so many news stories about what's happening or what who did what, etc. It was more about my interpretation of those news stories,
Yeah.
my opinion about what happened and why it happened and what would have happened in the background. So I enjoyed it for a few months, that writing about cricket. Um, but then it dwindled off, partly because of two reasons. Number one, when I started writing, I was enjoying it, but then it was taking too much of time. So I
Mm.
thought, if I'm writing and it's taking too much of time, then why not write about something which will help me business wise?
Yeah.
And that's where my project management blog started. And the second thing was that when I was blogging on the cricket, since there's so many people who cover cricket or any other sport, it's very difficult to get through and find your own audience. So nobody was reading, or maybe whatever the reason may be, I didn't get so much appreciation or followers. So I thought, why continue? So this was like motivating also. So for these two reasons, I started my project management blog. This was around 2010, and stopped writing on the cricket. So which it's a kind of defunct now. So I don't write on cricket
Mhm.
anymore. Uh, and then the project management blog, when I started, it was on Blogspot, and then I had some immediate audience also, because I was conducting trainings, and I would go to those training sessions, and then there will be like 20, 30 odd people in those sessions, sometimes more. and I would say, okay, this is the blog I write about. If you have any questions, anything, you can just drop in a note. You can write your comments. You should read it, good knowledge, etc. So some people started following it over a period of time. It started growing in popularity. And initially, it was on Blogspot, and when I started growing in popularity, I thought, why not take my own domain and do my own thing, have my own server, etc. And being a software engineer, I could always do these things very easily. So,
Yeah.
so in
Yeah.
2014, I shifted to my own domain, and from there on, the popularity just grew. So first few years, it was when I started the project management blog, it was more for the purposes of getting more business. So I thought, if I'm writing something on project management and people are looking at it and they will appreciate my knowledge, my expertise on project management, and eventually I might get some business. I might get some at least inquiries.
Hmm.
I did, but the purpose not much beyond it. But moving forward, around 2014-15 timeframe, when I shifted my blog from Blogspot to my own domain, there I realized that blog could be much more powerful than just getting some odd training opportunities or some odd business coaching opportunities. Um, and I started, I created ebooks specifically for the PMP, and started monetizing the blog. And it has, over a period of time, what has happened is the blog has grown so much, like from 2015 to, let's say, today, that it is giving me much more income than my trainings, regular kind of trainings.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So,
No,
so it's so
that's definitely worthwhile doing then, isn't it?
yeah, it's definitely worthwhile. I have a small team also who gives
Yeah.
me support for maintaining the blog now. So it's a good thing.
Excellent. Excellent. And I know I've used Blogspot myself, and well, I do use Blogspot for my blog, and moved across. I've got a diverted URL at the moment because, and I find it a really good platform actually. It's sticks. Ooh, I don't know what's happening here. My Alexa device is making noise.
So it might be telling you that
Yeah, I don't know why that was. It was like repeating what I was saying. It must have thought I said Simon Says. Oh well, that's interesting. Yeah, as I say, I used Blogspot myself, and uh, yeah, I find some of the features aren't amazing, but for setting up a basic blog, it's ideal, I thought.
yeah, it is.
Excellent. So, I've got a last few questions. The first one is, what was the last project book that you read?
Uh, it's been some time about the project book. I read regularly. Recently I read The Art of War, was the English version from by Sam Zhu, that Chinese Art of War. Uh,
Hmm.
I read some entrepreneurship books. I've not really read a project management book in some time, but the last one, uh, I don't really remember.
That's fair
Uh,
enough.
so the business, there was a business book which was, you can say, related to project management, which was, what was it? I'm forgetting the name. Um, just a minute. It's in my, just quickly tell you. Yeah, the E-Myth.
Oh right.
Yeah. So this book is about small businesses,
Hmm.
and it's from an American author called Michael Gerber, and it was first published in somewhere in late 80s, and it's a very good book. And I think even if you don't own a small business, it's a must read for any project manager.
It's a very good point because many, well, I
Yeah.
think the project management ethos needs to be, if you think of your project as a small business, then you can approach it in a very different way.
Yeah, and this book talks about the processes, about importance of implementing those, defining those processes and implementing those processes. How small businesses can become great businesses by implementing processes. So it's a very good book. It's a small book, and it's written in very lucid, easy language. You just get anyone who understands the value of the process should read it. It's an excellent book.
Oh, cool. So can we? What was that again? Because I think the line broke up a little bit. So what was the name of the book again?
Yeah, it is E-Myth. E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
And how's it spelling E-Myth? E-M-I-T?
E-M-I-T-H. Myth.
Ah.
So E is for entrepreneur. Entrepreneur's myth.
Ah, yes. There we go. Yeah, cool. I might take a look at that myself. So, as you're on a podcast, what was the last project podcast you listened to?
Last project podcast. I think I hear project podcast once every few weeks from Cornelius Fishner, the PMP. What do you say? A PMP coach and a trainer. He has his own company. So I listen to his podcast once in a while. That's about it. I don't. I don't listen to many other podcasts, project management podcast. Nowadays I listen more on the blogging podcast, digital marketing podcasts. Talking about the blogging podcast, there are like very good blogging podcasts from Neil Patel. He's an American blogger. But project management, yes, mainly Cornelius Fishner.
Cool. And blogs, what project management blog do you read? What was your last one that you read?
Okay, so I always the reading is one thing I always do. I may not have read project management books for a while, but I regularly read project management blogs. So there are like number of blogs. Girl Guide to Project Management. There is Cornelius Fishner, his own blog. I look at my other PMP related blogs. Like there's one from Fahad Osmani. Then there is a project management blog, the PMP oriented blog from a guy named Edward. He's based in Hong Kong. So I keep on reading their blog posts. Some are interesting, some are not so interesting, but then at least I get an idea of where the world is going, what other people are doing, what are they writing about. Sometimes I'm searching, I find an interesting post, and I just read it.
Okay, cool. So I've got two final questions, and these are kind of looking back. What would you say to a seasoned PM? What sort of tip would you say to a seasoned PM at the moment?
Okay. So I would say that stay on top of communication. Communication, like it takes a lot of time when you're doing project management, but still stay on top of communication.
Yeah.
If you have to err on for communication, then err on the side of over communicating rather than just under communicating. So whether it's written communication,
verbal communication, meetings, one-to-one meetings, group meetings, whatever it may be. Uh, Communication doesn't only mean that talking. It also means listening to what other people are saying, understanding uh, what they want and do not want, and understanding the expectation and meeting those expectations, and sometimes saying no, we cannot do this.
Hmm. Yeah.
Communication is very important. If communication, especially with the senior management, with the team members, with the client, the main stakeholders of the project, it's very important.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I agree. It's that scenario of being clear in your communication, and sometimes you say no and not be very clear with it, and so that's the other thing you need to do on that, isn't it? So the last question, and then I'm going to let you get on with your day.
Yeah.
Let's cast our mind back to 1997 when you first started, when someone had said, right, you might want to use Microsoft Project. What advice would you give to Praveen back then in the heyday of the 1990s?
Interesting question. I would say, uh, when in those younger days, you have a lot of energy and you want to do everything like in a jiffy and everything like it should be done yesterday, etc.
Hmm.
So my one advice to my younger self would be that take one step at a time, understand the scenario before taking any action. Do not do things in haste. Specifically talking about Microsoft project, I would say that uh, I should have maybe uh, bought a book on Microsoft project.
Hmm.
Uh, at least read a first few chapters, introductory chapters about Microsoft project, and then started implementing something. Of course, it would have taken a little bit more time, but it would have been much more fruitful to use a tool as it should have been used.
Yeah.
So, so do not do things in a haste, and do not always uh, start doing things just because it needs to be done. Take a step back, understand the scenario, and then act.
Enact. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really good advice. Well, thank you, Praveen. That's been a really, really interesting
No,
uh,
no, thanks, Nigel.
interview, and I hope you've enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
So if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get hold of you?
They can contact me through my blog, which is www.pmbypm.com. So I have a contact page. The messages directly come to me. I respond. They can communicate through my LinkedIn handle. Just search on Praveen Malik, and you'll get my handle. These are, I think, the two best ways to get in touch with me.
They
Um,
seem to work for me.
yeah. In fact, if you search my name on Google, you will get my LinkedIn, you'll get my
Yeah.
blog, get my Facebook also, and a couple of other things. I would say Twitter handle.
Yeah.
So
We've all got 101 different connection techniques these days, haven't
yeah,
we? Well, that's brilliant, and I'll include all that links and all that into the show notes. So finally, again, thank you very much for agreeing to come on onto the podcast, and that's it. And have a great rest of the day.
yeah. The pleasure was mine, Nigel. Have a great day ahead. Goodbye.
Thank you, Praveen. Thank you very much to Praveen for a fabulous interview. If you know anyone who's interested or would be interesting to talk about project management with me, get them send me a message at sundaylunchpod or at nigelcreaser.com or sundaylunchpmpod, whatever, anything at nigelcreaser.com will get to me. If you've got questions or concerns, use any of those email addresses as well, or grab hold of me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Sunday Lunch PM is the easiest way to search. And if you want to search the show, as I say, every month, easiest and cheapest is share this with your friend. They will then get the benefit and then hopefully help increase the number of people I've got listening. Next, you can craft me a 5-star review, whatever platform you're listening on. Grab a free copy of When I Were a Project Manager, or buy a copy of the paperback or a copy of either the ebook or the paperback version of Project Management, the sketches. We have a Patreon site, Sunday Lunch PM, where you can pledge some money to support me as well. But more importantly than all these, please come back next time in the new decade. So all it is to say is I hope you have a fantastic holiday period, and I will be doing a quick review of the year, what's happening next year type podcast at some point over the holidays. And just wishing you and all your family and friends a fantastic holiday period. And remember, hashtag Project Management is funny. Well, it's goodbye from me, Nigel Creaser, and it's goodbye from him, the Sunday Lunch PM. Goodbye.